Right, can we please give a big round of applause for Laurie Whiteley?
Woo! Hey, darling. Mwah. Mwah. So we all begin life as scientists, right? Every baby is a scientist. If you give an infant something they have never experienced before, they will begin experimenting on it. They'll try to take it apart, they'll try to stick their hand in it, and inevitably, they'll shove it in their mouth, which frankly is a habit that not all scientists manage to get out of. So I've actually, as part of this, I have done a little bit of self-experimentation, and I will tell you what the experiment was at the end of this series of slides. So back in 1982, two Australian scientists were studying H. pylori. And they couldn't get a paper published. Now, if you're a scientist, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that peer-reviewed swing. So to prove a point, Barry Marshall did the only thing he could. He drank a great big glass of ulcer juice to prove a point. What kind of prize-winning dickhead does that? The 2005 Nobel Prize winners for medicine and physiology. That's the prize-winning dickheads. So you kind of ask yourself, what would possess a man to drink, literally, ulcer juice? Well, one of his peers, 1977 Nobel Prize laureate, the lovely Dr. Rosalind Yalow, pointed out the fact that as a scientist who studies something, you are the only person who is really uniquely capable of giving consent. You know exactly what you're getting into, right? But we do this to ourselves all the time, right? Who does it? You do it. Probably. So, as we all remember from school, the scientific method consists of coming up with a hypothesis, running tests on it, adjusting things, writing things down, comparing things, going back, refining, alter, reject. So we do this all the time, even without thinking about it. If any of you here, have, like me, I mean, show of hands, have apps on your phone, calorie counter and tracker apps, then you are a self-experimenter. You have undertaken a scientific experiment to see what would happen if you reduce the amount of calories that you intake. You've written down what you like best. You've made it work. Congratulations, you're a scientist. So in his wonderful book, Elephants on Acid, there was a wonderful story about Tusco the elephant. In the early 60s, various governments were trying to bring the mind control properties of LSD into the field, so they gave a big bunch to Tusco, and it was very jolly, and he lived happily ever after. Really, basically, there's some talk, no one's quite sure whether Tusco died from the massive amount of LSD he was given or from the stuff they gave him to try to counteract the terrible reaction he was having. But the end result was that a 16-year-old Indian elephant died for basically no reason. And it makes you wonder whether we'd be less willing to test things on animals if we had to test them ourselves first. Now, self-experimentation isn't just limited to scientists. This guy is an artist named Brian Lewis Saunders, and he undertook a project to take a varying degree and varying kinds of drugs and to do self-portraits under the influence of those drugs. Now again, some of them look quite fun, but I'll direct your attention to the lower left-hand corner. Bath salts, right? Some of you may or may not be familiar with bath salts. Let me remind you about bath salts, right? Face-eating zombie designer drug, bath salts. He caused himself, and I quote, non-irreparable brain damage in the name of art, right? So the drugs we take, I mean, these are some of the side effects of the drugs that we wind up taking all the time. Now again, what kind of a friggin' lunatic would take the kind of drugs that provide this smorgasbord of side effects? All of those side effects are known, listed, and well-known side effects experienced from a class of drugs called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, aka antidepressants. So if you take antidepressants, the chances are you could encounter some really horrible side effects. But the thing is depression is a curable disease, and it's a leading cause of death, especially in men under the age of 35. So I feel it's worth self-experimenting. Now, life itself is difficult. This is Sir Francis Bacon, the writer, the poet, undertook his first scientific experiments in his 60s, and he died of a cold he caught while stuffing a chicken with snow. Right? So this was my bit of self-experimentation, and it's an experiment called What Happens When You Do Your Bettakultcha Slides While Finishing Off the Last of the Christmas Booze. And I think it went well, and thank you for being my peer review group on the Get Drunk and Do Your Slides experiment.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can see others on the Bettakultcha YouTube channel. Subscribe now and you'll be notified when new ones are uploaded.